So I've prepared an image for what I'm going to be making into a block print. Now, once you have this drawn out, I always have the students do something in the foreground, something in the midground, and something in the background, and they always have to have a horizon line. So once this is all drawn out, I'm using an ebony pencil. I find that these work best because they have a little bit more oil in them, so they transfer a little bit better. So I'm going to go over the areas that I want to transfer. The reason that we go over this with an ebony pencil is so that when we go to transfer this image onto the block, we can flip it over onto the block and then shade on the back, and it will transfer that image backwards. One thing that you always need to remember about doing block prints are when you are printing, it prints the opposite way that you have made it. And so especially if you're doing words, names, anything like that, or anything that needs to happen in a certain sequence, make sure that you do it backwards. That's why we first draw it on the separate sheet of paper, flip it over, and then shade on the back to transfer it. So you can see the image is now transferred backwards onto the block print. This is also useful in multi-prints. So if you're putting the ink on, printing it once, and washing it away, then you can put the lines back onto the block exactly where they were. So for the multi-print, I have a sheet of newsprint paper just to keep my area clean. And I have my block that I have not carved on yet. I've got a tray to put my ink. I've got a palette knife to scoop some of the ink onto the tray. And then I've got my brayer to apply the ink to my block. So for this carving, I've got that barn scene with the mountains and the tree that I showed before in the introduction. And so I'm going to do the background color. So I'm actually going to use two different colors. You can use just one color if you like, but I'm going to use two different colors, a blue and a white, and I'm going to put that across my whole block, and then I'm going to print that at my number 1 square, and I'm going to do it at my bottom square that I'm going to have all my layers on. And I'm also going to do it on 5 different sheets and colors of paper. Like I mentioned before, it helps to figure out what order you are going to carve things away first before you start carving anything away. Again, helping to do the positives and the negatives to figure out what you are carving away will help your work look better. So once you've got that figured out, I usually take one of the smaller cutting tools to etch out the areas or the edges which I'm going to be cutting out. So I'm going to go around and I'm going to cut out this area for this tree and around here, and then I'm going to go through the middle and carve out those pieces. Like I mentioned before, it helps to figure out what order you are going to carve things away first before you start carving anything away. Again, helping to do the positives and the negatives to figure out what you are carving away will help your work look better. So once you've got that figured out, I usually take one of the smaller. So if you're doing a multi-print, you only want to carve out the colors that you want to keep. So considering that I already printed in blue, I want to keep the sky blue. So that's all I carved away. So I'm going to put ink on this and do the next color that I'm going to be using, which is going to be these mountains, which are going to be the second farthest thing away. So I've already printed these in blue. So I'm going to take these and I'm going to print over them. And the next layer of ink is going to cover up everything except for what I carved away. So again, anything that you printed and want to keep on a multi-print, you carve away. And anything that you print on top of will be covered up. If I'm doing a mono print, then I would carve out my positives and my negatives like I've practiced here on my sheets. Now that I've got my sky carved out and my sky is already printed, on the big sheet, I'm going to put my second layer of print right here and right here. That way it's showing my first layer, my second layer, and it's showing all the layers that I've been doing. I'm also going to do the 5 prints that I did like this. So I'm going to ink this up and then I'm going to print those areas. So when you do your next layers, you're going to have a single layer here, and then you're going to have 2 layers here. Do more, do better.